All right, welcome back to week 41 of Agentuity demo days. We were out last week for Thanksgiving, so we've got a lot of content here. Since it's been a couple of weeks, we've got some really exciting stuff that's coming up next week, which we'll preview here in the end with Rick. He'll give us a little preview of what's coming next week and some of the plans over the next few weeks with the new release. I'm going to start with the demo around SDK and CLI and some of the changes we've been making. And just kind of preview some of those overall changes, and then we can kind of move on to some others that have been working on some really cool stuff too. So let's start with, I will show you some of the new CLI. We have the new CLI. It's a port of the old CLI, but with some improvements around grouping and just a lot of improvements around the actual experience and consistency across all the commands. We've also done some really good work in the last 2 weeks with the AI coding agents and making sure the coding agents can use the CLI really well. For example, we've done a lot of things around, let's say build, and you can kind of do help JSON, and you can kind of get some really good information coming out. Of course, that didn't work because that's a regression, but you can kind of do some really cool things around the UI, a lot better stuff around output, etc. We'll start with creating a project though. When you create a project, you'll see some of the new UI around that. I think we said week 41 here, week 41. I'm going to select the default template. We will have some more templates before we go out, but right now we just have a simple template. This will basically pull down the template just like before, copy in the resources. Now we do have this new resource section. We mentioned it in a previous demo, but you can now create a full SQL database. This is a Postgres-backed database. You can choose an existing one. You can see I've been doing a bunch of testing. You create a new one, or I can skip. I'm just going to skip for now. Same with storage buckets. So we have full S3 compatible. Rick's going to show off some really cool demos around that as well. I'm going to skip that for now. And then I now have my project. So let's just go into my week 41. And then I will bring it up in code just so we can see a little bit of the code. Yes, I trust this author. Who is this guy? I don't know who wrote this. Okay, let's make this a little bit bigger so we can see this. Standard new project. We tried to make it pretty compact, but worked really well out of box. We now have an Agentuity. We've moved away from the YAML. We mentioned that in a previous video. We've moved to a JSON file and tried to reduce some of the things that aren't really that important. We also have really nice schema, so it's everything's pretty much validated, etc. We'll start with organization, code organization. I'm going to start with the app.ts file. So we have just a really simple boilerplate app.ts. We have some really neat things you can do. I showed off before, I believe in the previous demo, but you can do setup and shutdown life cycles. These are optional. Whatever you return inside your setup will be fully type safe in different parts of your app. So if you wanted to, for example, initialize something, external and set a property that you want that to be available across all your routes and all your agents, et cetera, you can do that. And then that same state will be passed back to you in the shutdown, which is really nice. Moving on to code organization, we've done a bunch of refactoring in the last week around how, based on our own experience with building a number of agents and porting some existing agents over to this new version. So we've kind of come up with this newer organization. We have 3 folders. All of them are optional. You can do 1 or all 3 or 2 of the 3, etc. We have an agent folder where all your agents going to live. We have an API folder, which are where your APIs are going to live. And then we have a web folder where you can stick a front end if you're building a front end co-located along with your API and your agent. So you can get kind of a full stack agentic project all in one now with Agentuity with this new release. We'll start with agents, something you're more familiar with. This is a template project, obviously, so I'll just start with the agent itself. We made a number of changes here on the agent based on a ton of feedback, as well as frankly, just our own usage of it. One is if I define this agent here, I've just got to, obviously this is not really even an agent, it's just returning some fake data just to show you how to structure it. But starting up top, we've got the agent name, give it a unique name. You can then, of course, give it a description. You can give it optional schema. Of course, we recommend a schema if you're going to send data in and out of the agent, so you get full type safety. We also have our own schema built into our mono repos now. You can, of course, use any standard schema. So standard schema support is a spec. It's a standard that Zod and archetype, and there's probably like another 30 different, whatever your favorite validation schema library is, but we thought it would be great just to provide that out of the box. It's not as full featured as a Zod or an Archetype or something like that, but it is sufficient, we think, for about 90% of most use cases. It's kind of nice. So you can see here, I'm just creating an object. I'm expecting an input with an object name and an output a string, which is what I'm doing here. You get full type safety, which is really nice because whatever you put in your schema, you'll get full type safety all the way through, which is really, really nice and really, really important. So that's kind of a basic agent structure. Of course, normally you would hit an LLM and you might have a whole bunch of loops and tools and a bunch of things you would do inside this agent. But once you make this agent, it basically becomes reusable and it becomes invocable as well. In this case, I'm just exporting this agent in case you have a bunch of different agents or sub agents inside this folder, and you can have as many folders as you want. So that's the basic agent structure. Moving on to APIs real quick. We've made a bunch of decisions about how to cleanly separate agents from APIs, and should we couple, the API for the agent close to the agent, or should we separate it? We made a decision after starting that way and kind of coming back to, we want to cleanly separate the API, like in other words, how data comes into your application and how then that data gets maybe transmuted, transformed, verified, security, et cetera, separate than how your agent gets invoked. In a lot of cases, we found, even building in agents ourselves and talking to a bunch of people in the community, often agents are, two different agents might communicate and they never have a web interface or an API interface or anything like that, right? So it doesn't always make sense to couple APIs to agents. So we kind of cleanly separated them. You can see here that I've got just a really basic app here. So I've got my agent. What's also nice is we've TS configured this so that you can automatically use your aliases automatically. I just import my agent. The agent itself now is fully runnable and it's fully verifiable. So in this case, we can also provide middleware. So in this case, I'm providing a middleware for the agent that automatically validates the input and the output schema. So in this case, I'm doing a post to this hello endpoint, and then I want to validate that it's just matching exactly what the agent expects. I could also override this. So let's say I wanted to override it and say, maybe instead of a string or instead of an object with a name, I want to override it and I want to use Zod or something else to override that schema. You can do that as well. I'll just leave it as the same for now. And then you get your nice validation coming out, of course. And then you can see here, I'm getting my validated out, and then I can invoke my schema with a run, and then I get my data back. In this case, I'm just doing a one-to-one mapping here. You might want to put some logic in. You might want to put some security headers in, for example. There's other things you might need to do to support before you call your agent. So we cleanly separated those out. Of course, these don't have to be agents. These are just normal routes, so you can do whatever you want to do with this as a normal route. And then we have web here. Now we have a full stack. As mentioned before, we have a full stack capability for web. So that's all coupled as well. So this is just a very simple React front end, your normal index HTML, just a normal front end wrapper. You have this demo has a really simple front end, which I'll run here in a second. But it also shows off some of the new hook capability with our SDK. So we have a React SDK now. As part of the mono repo, we will be making some other front end support like Svelte. But today we have a React front end. You can, for example, get use API. What's really nice about use API and some of the other hooks, they're full type safe. So in this case, you can see this is fully type safe with the routes. We've got a few different patterns. This is similar to TanStack query, if you've ever used that, something like that. So I can just get full type safety. All the transports and authentication and all that just kind of gets handled by the hook automatically. So let's just run this. This is kind of a little bit of a code overview. So let's just run this real quick with an Agent 2D dev, our trusty dev. And then you can see here that we have it running in dev mode. I'm going to pull this up locally. And here is that app I just showed you. This is the front end. So let me just exercise this. This is going to be really, really exciting. Oh, wow. Hello world. Okay, that's great. Pretty basic example. We do have really nice things like hot loading. So if I go down here and we'll say change the background color, what is this? All right, let's just change the background color to red. I don't know. You do get this nice hot loading as you expect. So all that should work as well. And you can also, of course, hot load, let's say, the agent. So let me say, I don't know, something like that, and then hot load the agent. And if I do that, you can see that's all hot reloaded as you would expect. So that's pretty much a little bit of a tour. Let me do one more thing real quick, just to show you a few other little things to kind of show off on the CLI. We do have a number of new commands. We try to make everything you can do in our platform should be enabled 100% in the CLI. Of course, you'll have a UI as well, and we'll have SDKs and APIs for that. But 100% of this now is available. So you can see there's a much broader set of things on the cloud that you can do. But you can sort of see, let me do like DB, and you can sort of see like, you know, different databases that I've been working on in my cloud. You can sort of see different ones here. And I can do really cool things like, let's say I want to say select now or something, and I got to, of course, give it a database name. So let's say I'll give it this database name here, and I can do some pretty cool stuff. So I can just kind of manage my database, delete, report. I can do all of that. I can do storage, et cetera. So I'm not going to do much of the demos there because I know Rick's going to do some of the front end demos for this. But as you can see, you can kind of manage your buckets, your storage, your databases. You can kind of manage pretty much everything, your sessions, your threads. You can SSH into your machines. You can manage all your deployments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we've got a tremendous amount of capabilities now we built into the CLI, and we're really excited about. So I will now hand this over to, let me stop sharing, and I will hand this back over to my colleagues here. And Parteek is going to go from here.
Yep, thank you, Jeff. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the documentation that I've been working on, which has kind of been like my main mission over the past couple of weeks. You know, with so much changing and the fact that we're adding so much with V1, it sort of gave us an opportunity to like take a step back and think about what our docs are doing now and how we can kind of improve it. So I'm just going to kind of show off a bit of that. So when you come to our docs, this is sort of all in preview, but we're open to have like a picker where you can go back and forth between, you know, the V0 stuff, the current stuff that you might be familiar with, and then the V1 preview. So that's where you can kind of go back and forth and compare and contrast if you want to. But with V1, kind of my goal with the docs was make it a lot more like code forward, like not a bunch of walls of text. Like you get code examples right away. It's super helpful. We like link to relevant pages. So it's really nice to walk through. And with that, there's like a new structure in the sidebar. So, you know, it's really easy to like find what you're looking for. You can just go to build agents and kind of go through the whole process of like how you would get started, you know, from a basic agent all the way through to like using the AI gateway. You know, some of these things we've gotten feedback on that sometimes aren't the most easy to find. So kind of just want to make the DX better, you know, within our docs, not just, you know, in our product. So that's sort of been my goal. And again, like we really want to make this like code forward. So it's not, you know, you're not digging through to find examples to see what the docs look like. And another thing within that is like linking to other pages that are related. So it makes it really easy like to build on top of skills once you do find, you know, what you're looking for. So that's sort of the general restructuring of it. And of course, as Jeff mentioned, there's a lot of new stuff with things like the CLI. So we've got, you know, a reference section down here where, you know, you can really easily get started. You know, Jeff mentioned like the AI commands, so you can, you know, go to this page and find more information on that and get, you know, a bit more information. There's also a migration guide. So of course, with so many new changes, you're probably going to want to like have one page where you can go through and see all the new things that we're adding. So we've got that updated, as well as, of course, things like the API reference, which is going to have all the full stack capabilities for V1. So working through all of that. And actually, one thing that I'm adding right now is the idea of a code. You know, sometimes we have examples where we put them like, you know, in a repo, or maybe we mention like the kitchen sink, but it can be kind of hard to like find what you're looking for and just grab, you know, a single example and walk through it. So I also want to make like a cookbook where we've got some patterns that you might see popping up now and then, like how to handle incoming webhooks, which you'll see like in a bunch of our examples, right? Anytime you want to like integrate with an external service like Slack, you'll see this type of pattern. So having like that concept in one place is something that I want to have in our docs. As you can see, I'm kind of working on adding a bit of that in here. But the cookbook is also going to have some longer tutorials that you can kind of walk through step by step, and it's going to build out, a full project for you. So in this case, it's a simple RAG agent, but you can see like it'll talk about project structure, how to add every single file, what each file does, and things like that. And of course, again, we always want to link to like other relevant pages so you can kind of build on your skills and see how all this kind of relates together. Because there is a lot changing, but hopefully this makes the DX around actually learning everything with V1 a lot easier. So that's been my project for the past couple of weeks. And yeah, I'm excited to keep building on this as we keep developing new stuff.
That's great. It's awesome.
Yeah. And with that, I will pass it over to Bobby.
Yep. So with all the different changes, I have been working on our reimagining of what dev mode is. And that's what that is, the new product name, right, is called Workbench. And that's what you see on the right here. When you spin up a new Agent 2D project, your app will end up looking like this. You'll have this create workbench, and that kind of denotes the fact that you have this Workbench UI available on the Slack Workbench route. And I showed this in some previous demos, but you can change where this is at if you want to. It's customizable, but by default, it's on the /Workbench route. And what this UI does is it enables you to invoke your agents very easily in a chat style user interface. So I'm going to pop over to the agent implementation here. Just do this. So you can see the agent here. We have the input schema is just a name, and then we're going to call the AI SDK, or we call it OpenAI, and have it say a friendly message. Over here in the UI, I'm going to click on the schema button, and you can see that the schema is loaded in the UI and it matches, right? So we're actually just scooping out the source code as an easy reference for you. Same thing with the output schema. And then some other cool stuff we can do, right, is I kind of already spoiled it, but you can press this sample button and it will generate sample payload for you. Right now it's not agentic, but we're going to make it agentic in the future. So you also have a list of your agents over here. So let's execute this. And we can see that we get some extra information about how long that session took to execute and how many tokens it's used, and then we get the response here. So this is just the beginning of Workbench. We got big plans for Workbench. I think it's going to be really cool once we wrap all this up. So yeah, keep an eye out. And let's hand it over to Robin.
Yep. Let me share. All right. So before I even share, one of the big, I work on the infrastructure side, right? One of the biggest pieces of feedback I always get, I mean, we get feedback for other stuff too, but I always get is I deployed something and it's not working. I don't know what's happening. I can't find any logs. And why do we have this problem? We have logs, we have a logger, all kinds of things. We use OpenTelemetry everywhere. But the reason that this happens is because if you panic, like in the global state, or you are using some wrong binary or something, right? And that crashes your agent before our OTel stuff can get plugged in, right? Then we can't send that, right? Like the process is dead, right? Or if it doesn't fit within your constraints and things like that. And so we've tried to tool that a lot, but with V1, we're really taking let's just show them what's coming out. And so what we've built now is we can give you we'll give you the logs directly out of the process. Here's the standard out of your deployment. So here, I'll show that. This is really rough. I don't think anyone's here has even seen this. This is really new. So it's not going to look like this as it's going, but I'm going to show deployment, and what it's going to do is it's going to go and upload my stuff, and then it will stream back the logs from what's actually happening. My keyboard fell asleep. Give me a minute here. There we go. So I'll deploy this. Again, it's really rough. I just coded this thing into the CLI like an hour ago. I guess my agent coded it in. No. Darn it. I just did this. Let me try it again.
Oh, I thought this was the demo.
There it is. Look at that. Yeah. Look at these warm-up logs. This is cool, right? So it's not completing right now because I have an incorrect status endpoint. But you can see this is crap that it would come out of my, oh, we never did this. So that's the example. And then I think I can do an even cooler demo, right? So here, I'll throw a classic error in the AI space right here in my agent. I'll try to play this again. I think I should get it. Let's see. No, huh? I guess because this one's starting before, because of the Zod issue. Maybe I can fix it. But you guys get the point. Anyways, we're going to make this available. Again, it's not going to look like this necessarily, but now we can show you this. So if your deployment fails, it's not going to be like succeed. We can just be like, here's the exact output. Here's what happened. You can get back into it. We're also doing, sneak peek. In V1, we're also doing SSH, so you can hop in there. We're really trying to make it so that you have absolute control and confidence of what's going on in your agent. That's it. Over to Rick.
Awesome, awesome. All right, let me share my screen. Got lots and lots of stuff going on here. Share. Boom, boom. You see my screen? Big enough? Yes? Yeah. All right, good. Cool. All right, so Matt's not here, so I'm going to try to demo his stuff. He did a lot more stuff than I have in my head right now, but my stuff, his stuff. But mainly this is web app changes because of V1, lots of enhancements. Of course, underlying things that are changing as well. So I'm on my agent or project screen, as you can see here, and this is the project called local test Arch, by the way. And then I go to agents, and you'll see here's our list of agents like we had in V1, similar. But if I click into it, what we've done is we've decided not to do the little flyover things, but just to load a screen like this instead. It's a little quicker. And this will also allow us to scale this screen a little bit more and do a few other things. But you'll see you got the sessions, logs. The new thing, which you notice when Jeff was talking about the routes, the API routes that get deployed now those are here visible, and you can actually click here and get the URL or get a curl actually, and then drop it in to interact with the route this way as well. So when you do deployments, these will be here as well. And then we also show the database and the object storage that are associated with the deployment that your agent is using or involved in. So you can click on this. I'll show you the database in a minute. That's one of the things we did, and then Matt did this week as well, which is just the routes, all the routes that are, this is an example app we have internally, so you can tell there's a ton of routes that we've created. And so there's more coming here. You'll be able to click into it and get telemetry about each one of them, but that's what we have right now for the alpha. I'll talk about that in a minute. Deployments are much more detailed now. So now you have this manifest in deployments where you'll see every agent that's deployed in this deployment, the resources, the data resources, the routes, everything that is that in that deployment will be in this screen. So that's nice as well. So that's another addition. And then I'm going to jump over here to services. So services, we're doing several things in V1. The first one is we're giving you databases. You saw Jeff's thing where it was like create database, and you can create a bunch of databases. You can see here I've got a bunch of databases, and these are Postgres databases. I'll click into it, and kind of our first stab at the UI, you get the connection URL and all the typical information you'd expect to get. And you land on the schema. You can see what the schemas look like. You can click on the data tab, and you can actually tab through the data to see what's there. And then you actually can query it. So you can actually query your data. And again, this is all in the CLI as well. So you can run it in the CLI as well. It's orthogonal, which is cool. So there you go. Pretty cool, right? All right, so that's databases. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we did some things with the KV just to make it work better. It was a little janky before, but now it renders pretty much any kind of content type. You can see the PDF I just uploaded to test it out. Another big one is we had object store as like a service. It wasn't really like proper S3. It was an abstraction, make it really easy in V0 in our first preview version. But in this one, it's proper S3 compatible storage, which is great because now you can treat it that way. You can use whatever S3 client, SDK that you need to use. Of course, in Agent 2D, we because it's Bun now in V1, you can use the Bun S3 API. It just works kind of magically. And probably we'll demo that later because you don't have to set anything up and it just works. It's really cool. But anyway, you can see here, I created this bucket. I actually created this in the CLI before, but you can create it, manually this way. So I click on that bucket and I uploaded this via the CLI earlier. Yeah, it's just the read. I took the readme from one of our things, but same thing as like the database thing. You can get the connection URL and the access key and the secret key, plug it into your client. But then you have a full client here in the web too, so you can upload files. You'll see here it's gonna boom, it just uploaded, yay. And then click on it, and then it'll show you the image I took. There's the image. You can download it. I can delete the bucket, etc. So kind of what you'd expect from an S3 merge. And we're going to do a lot more stuff with it, of course. And again, orthogonal, just to repeat myself, this also works in the CLI as well, which is awesome. And then we have these SDKs, so you can drop in the Agent 2D SDK in your server and elsewhere, and it'll just work. So that's it for the web stuff. I don't think I'm forgetting anything, but then also just to kind of close it out. So next week, we've been working furiously on this. So next week, we're going to start the alpha for version 1 for this. So the SDKs that Jeff showed you, this stuff, the thing that Bobby showed you with the Workbench, all that is in version 1. And so we're gonna launch that next week in an alpha. The GitHub repo for the SDK will be open. There'll be a discussions tab where you can have discussions in the GitHub repo. I know we have a lot of people that want to contribute and want to see what's going on and stuff like that. So that'll be great for that. And of course, we have Discord too, where we're going to have more real-time conversations and that kind of stuff. But we will start moving things over to discussions in GitHub as well too. So that's cool because the SDK is open source, and I think it'll help with everybody understanding how the CLI works, how our SDKs and React SDKs and all those front end and back end SDKs work. So really excited about it. It's good. All right, and with that, I think we're done. Anybody else have any other comments, jokes, stories, anecdotes? No?
Exciting.
All right. Well, see you next week.
Mhm.